But why don't we get started before I offend anybody else? And let's be on our way. Carly, will you drive us forward? All right, so I want to start with a very important announcement. We do this webinar every 2 weeks, and we're very bad at checking the calendar way in advance and seeing where dates land. As it just so happens this year, 2 weeks from this Thursday is Thanksgiving Day. We are not going to do a webinar on that day. And we also are not talented enough to know how to actually change the setting in Zoom so it deletes only that one webinar from your calendar or from your invitations. So you will probably continue to get a message from Zoom about a webinar on November 25th. Ignore it. We're not going to be here. You'll be waiting in the waiting room for an hour with absolutely no progress whatsoever. Please do not show up 2 weeks from today, but please do show up 4 weeks from today. Well, that's a good question, right? No sharing of each other's Thanksgiving experiences on Thanksgiving Day. We can do it 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, right? We'll just do it a little bit later. So if you want to record your best moments and memories, share them with us 2 weeks later, but please do not come in 2 weeks. Yes, don't tell Patrick Carroll. That is a good point. All right, let's keep going. Carly? Another reminder, I'm sick of saying this. I feel like I have to all the time. If you're chatting and you want to chat with everyone, make sure you choose all panelists and attendees or everyone as the pull down option in Zoom. Let's keep going. You've heard me say this 100 times already. Now it's 101. And I wanted to just start off by talking about a couple of really great new reports in Report Pro. Many of you are using this already. I want to direct you to a couple of pieces of content that we thought were really cool. One is a great new Hot Shots report, which is meant to be consumed pretty quickly and give you top level information on a really wide range of topics. We just published a report on eating on the go, which, as you know, is more and more important all the time. Carly, let's see what the next one is. Oh, and a deep dive. This is not a short read. This is over 100 pages of really in-depth data around the healthcare food service segment. Everything you need to know about what's happened over the last year and a half, what that means going forward, and whether you are an operator in that space or a supplier to that space. Really, really helpful information. Really essential, I would say. Carly? Oh, and then we have an awesome trend spotting creative concepts write-up on the next generation of casual dining. What does that actually look like going forward? So if you have an interest in casual dining, definitely check this one out. And finally, so I guess I could probably figure out what this word means because I know what the various chunks of the word mean, but I've never actually heard this word itself. Mark, can you help us with this one?
Entomophagy, it is the consumption and eating of insects and bugs.
Yeah. And, you know, eating bugs has been talked about for a long time. Consumers largely are still not quite ready for it, but, and I see a lot of no thank yous in the comments, but there is certainly a mode of thinking that this is going to be one of the things that's going to be essential for us to get on board with at some point if we want to save the world. And, you know, we think climate change is going to be one of the big consumer topics around food for quite some time. And this will be one of the things I think that gets swept into that conversation. So give it a read. It's a short one, but you get a top level read of what consumers think about eating bugs today and maybe where it goes tomorrow. Okay, let's keep going, Carly. Oh, just one last reminder, there's a ton of stuff in Report Pro. Many of you already have access. If you're not sure if you have access or not, reach out. And if you do have access, just jump right in and find all the latest stuff. We have new reports every single week. Okay, let's go. Yeah, don't knock it unless you tried it with the bugs. Mark, tell us about what's happening with people's concern around COVID.
Well, you know, the way that I look at it is that it is, I think, holding pretty stable. For the past 3 months, kind of after, you know, the Delta variant, I think that we're sort of getting into our attitudes and feelings kind of post-Delta. So a lot of the, you know, levels of non-concern are holding pretty steady. And really just at the margins, we're kind of shifting from, you know, somewhat to very and back again. You know, I would say that at the end of the spring, that was sort of fool's recovery, where we sort of thought, you know, everything was totally raring to go and back to normal. Delta kind of interceded that and knocked us back a little bit. since then, we are sort of, I think, holding at levels that we've reached after kind of, spikes and waves of COVID. So the winter of the beginning of 2021, the Delta variant, those were periods of peaks of concern. I think since then we've been holding pretty steady.
Yeah, it seems like there doesn't seem like there's a rocket ship to zero concern. It's like we're sort of like in this meandering back and forth territory where it's sort of like leveled off. Mm-hmm. Is there anything you all can think of, and maybe in the comments too, that could happen? Like what would have to happen for a massive change where all of a sudden everyone says, okay, I'm not concerned about COVID anymore?
Well, I mean, I think that speaking as a parent, now that we have just kind of authorized vaccination for children 5 to 11, let's see how that rollout goes. And then, it's probably a lag of a month or two once we sort of have that going. So that would be my guess, is that if we see probably in 2 months, maybe, if that has gone the way that we want it to go, that might be a catalyst for not down to zero concern, but maybe mid-single digit concern.
Do you feel like we've sort of been constantly realigning what the goal is, or the goalpost has moved? I mean, I remember in the early days it was, hey, we just have to get through this so we don't overcrowd the healthcare system. And then we asked, like, hey, at what point are you gonna, feel concerned about going out and resuming your life? And the number one answer was when a vaccine is ready. And then it became when a vaccine is available to a big chunk of the population. And now it's vaccination around kids. Do you think there's another thing past kids, or is that the end game for this?
I don't know. It might be the end game, because I don't know who's left aside from the very, very hesitant and resistant, population. So.
Once you're in the booster cycle, there's always another vaccine around the corner, right? So I guess we'll see.
I think some of this will depend too on how the holidays go. I think depending on if we see a surge after Thanksgiving or not, it might drop or go up.
Yeah. Well, let's see what else we have around whether people want to go out to eat or not. Can we go forward one? So Mark, this is the stat we've been tracking since the beginning around, are you definitely avoiding eating out? And what are we seeing now?
So I think that this is a one of the rare times where our avoidant behavior is really kind of in front of our concern. While concern is kind of holding steady and even possibly elevating a little bit, some folks are switching from moderate to higher concern. We are kind of getting on with it, sort of breaking the seal on our dining out behavior. It's sort of like, well, yeah, we're tracking COVID numbers and cases and, our own situation. It's still a little dicey, but we sort of know the drill now. We sort of know how to mitigate it, how to take precaution. And so we, we're not really having much appetite left for a lot of really strict, protocols and lockdown. So we're sort of getting on with it.
Yeah, well, it's actually interesting. We see this in our other data too, where you have many consumers that have returned to dining out and are doing so just as often as they were previously. But you have a subset of the population that's either dining out a little bit less often, or is just basically completely suspended that behavior and has not gotten back into it. I guess if you think about that last group, the people that are just like, oh, I'm definitely avoiding eating out still, the number that we see on this slide. What does it take in the world for them to say, you know what, I'm good again? And I think what they express as like, oh yeah, this would tell me that this is a good signal, may not necessarily be the thing that actually matters when it's all said and done, right? Again, I go back to, we all sort of said one thing a year and a half ago about where we needed to be for us to feel fully comfortable again. And now we're thinking something a little bit different. So let's move forward. The public health crisis, economic crisis, we've seen some flip-flopping recently, right? So this question is, do you think this is more of a public health crisis we're in, or an economic crisis? Mark, what are you seeing in the data?
But it kind of goes back to the previous slide too, where we sort of are moving on and trying to deal with these things in tandem. We see that the numbers post Delta, during and right after the Delta variant, our public health concern did kind of rise again relative to the economic concerns, which for a time, kind of in fool's recovery, had overtaken the public health crisis. So we are literally back at equilibrium now, where it's a 50-50 split.
It's a 50 again. And there was a comment in that we probably should address. The question was on the prior stat around definitely avoiding eating out. Did we frame that as specifically being in relationship to COVID, or avoiding eating out for any reason at all?
It's really framed around COVID.
Yes,
we'll see in some stats later, in some later slides, about how it's more nuanced than that, and there are a lot of factors in play. But that question
it is specific to COVID. So the pre-COVID baseline would actually be 0, right? In that world. Right. So we're still above that baseline. Okay, let's keep going. So I actually want to ask all of you, and I don't know the answer to this, so I'm going to launch a poll. Do you feel like the world we're in right now, in your life and the city you're in and the state you're in, do you think we're already in the new normal, or are we still headed towards a new normal of some sort? I have my personal take, and I'll say that in a moment, but do you think we are already in the new normal today? What do you guys think? Renee, do you think that this is the new normal we're already in?
That's a really good question. I'm interested to see what people are gonna say. I kind of feel like it is, maybe an unpopular opinion, and maybe, I mean, I don't think it's the ideal normal that we want, but I think I've kind of settled into more or less a routine of what things are. Sadly, I think.
Yeah, I've said a couple of times to my kids, like, this is it, guys. Like, we kind of have to get used to this.
Yeah, I think until they say, like, there's no more COVID, like, absolutely, it just is forever gone, which I don't know if we can actually say that, but maybe that would be when things are back to actual before COVID.
Yeah, and this is one of those times where I wish Zoom would let us do a crosstab, because if we look at the votes, this is about as close to 50-50 as you can get. And someone had a really good comment, which is it probably depends on where you live. So I'm going to ask you all, can you in comments and chat type either yes or no, whatever you voted, and follow that with where you live? Are all of the no votes people that live in the more restricted cities, and all the yes votes the people who live elsewhere? And if someone wants to just monitor chat and see if you see any sort of worthwhile trend.
Well, it's coming in too fast to really.
So much typing.
So after this flurry of yeses and nos and cities and whatnot, if one of you sleuths out there can scroll back and see if you can discern any trend and share it out with us in chat, that would be awesome. We're going to crowdsource this analysis. Okay, let's keep going. So, Mark, we've been asking folks what their dining out is like today versus pre-COVID, and what do you see at a high level?
Well, I mean, I was surprised to see how a fair majority of people were saying that they're dining out less frequently. I would have guessed a little bit more people were saying that there really wasn't much change. I would have thought that there would have been more of a back to normal vibe, but this is still kind of belying some avoidant behavior. And probably more than we are seeing in some of the kind of earlier questions about avoiding dining out. So I was surprised to see that fewer people than I thought were either just kind of back to normal or getting back out there, and making up for lost time.
Yeah, I mean, look, it is that yellow slice of the pie is a combination of people that are just like not going to do it, and those that have done like a slight reduction in some way. So I guess all things considered, given that we're comparing to pre-COVID versus early COVID, it's not surprising that you have 50% that say, yeah, I'm in that yellow group. But you have a quarter that say I'm actually eating out more today than I was during pre-COVID times. And while traffic hasn't fully gotten back yet at restaurants to what pre-COVID looked like, we're not too far off. We're certainly starting to get within striking distance of that. So I think the trend is good, and it always comes back to me like the big question is, what do you do to convince that last group of folks that just aren't comfortable going out that, hey, now it's time? You know, when all of a sudden, let's say people say the mask mandate is gone, is that a signal that it must be safe and it's time to come back out again? Who knows? I don't know if anyone truly knows the answer to that.
And what we hear from like the big restaurant chains that have to kind of disclose these things publicly is that sales levels are back and have recovered, in some cases increased. A lot of that is, you know, due to off-premise. A lot of that is due to taking price. But
and a lot of it is due to the fact that we have 10% fewer restaurants today than we did pre-COVID. So if you're one of these surviving restaurants, the surviving 90%, there is a larger relative piece of the pie left for you now. So, okay, Carly, if you would. Mark, seems like a pretty even split. What do these numbers tell us?
You know, it's hard to discern here just from a kind of a close split here. But I do think that, you know, with if you combine this with the leveling off of the concern numbers, the kind of downward slope of the avoidant behavior numbers, it starts to make more sense to me. Where, you know, I think our patterns are starting to get set here. You know, and I think that some of the other, you know, kind of off-premise methods we've been tracking, you know, the increases in delivery and carry out, I think what that means is that some of these methods are going to be, you know, pretty sticky as we, you know, kind of come out of the prevailing sentiment that the pandemic is still with us.
Yeah, and I think, look,
we're not going to get a called end of the pandemic. I don't think. No one's going to be able to say, okay, it started March 10th of 2020 and it ended on this certain date.
Well, that was sort of the idea. Like, wasn't the, you know, some of the big concerts and stuff that they had planned, I think those was meant to be symbolic of like, hey, you know, COVID's over, we can go back to our lives now, but that didn't really seem to end up happening and having that exact result. But these numbers aren't very different than what we did in our vote, right? Are we in the new normal or not? Slightly over half say this is my new normal already. So I don't know if we should expect there to be just, you know, 100% of the population making giant changes to their lives anytime soon. Most of them have already settled into some sort of long-term behavior. At least they believe that they have.
The number on the left, I think, is going to improve, but it's going to be gradual because we'll see later that, you know, the number on the right, you know, this is kind of situational and fluid. It's not just because of COVID. There are other things in play too.
Yeah, there's comments in chat on some topics that we've covered in the past that are even more prominent now: supply chain, labor shortage, and inflation. We should probably explore that in a little more detail and maybe an upcoming session because it just keeps growing. Okay, let's keep going. Oh, let me go back. So we actually asked folks that say, hey, I'm eating out less often, why you're eating out less often than you did pre-COVID. And the number one answer is still actually COVID. So this is not everyone. This is just the people that are eating out less often than they did in pre-COVID times. And the number one thing that is discouraging them still is COVID. So it seems like there is still some sort of a possibility that some event will happen that will just bring all these people back into their seats at restaurants. I just don't know what that singular event is. Is it the lifting of a mandate? Is it a proclamation from the global emperor that COVID is now over or something? I mean, I don't know what that actually is. Is it a meteor landing and an alien coming out and saying, hey, you guys are cool, just go out into your normal life? I don't know. But we'll probably see a bit more of an erosion in that number of people being concerned about going out just because of COVID. I don't know if there's a light switch, so to speak, that just instantly changes it for us, but we'll see.
No, probably not. The ones that were after COVID concerns are also still out of restaurants' control. I mean, you can't control your guest's financial situation, or kind of the fact that, when people did without dining out, they made adjustments that are kind of long term.
Yeah, I mean, to some extent, right? Outdoor dining and stuff, that certainly helps, but tough in some parts of the country as we get into snowy season. Carly, if we could go one more forward. So we actually wanted to boil this down a little bit further. And we asked people, hey, just pick one thing. If you're not eating out as much as you used to, just pick one thing, the main thing. What is it? What's precluding you from eating out? And the number one thing is still concerns about COVID. But I will say, even though that is the top thing, it is not a majority of things. If you add up all the other stuff, you get almost 70%, whether it's changes in your finances or that the restaurants themselves aren't at the same level of capacity, so they don't have certain day parts available to you, or that, you know, you've changed your attitudes toward your health, and restaurants aren't as compatible with that behavior anymore. So collectively, that's a lot. But if you had to pick just one thing overall, it's still that concern about COVID. I don't know what this picture is meant to symbolize. I guess he's supposed to be a person freaking out or something. Okay, let's keep going. So this is a question we actually asked: what might motivate you to visit a restaurant to dine inside on a typical night when you might normally eat at home? And did these numbers surprise you, Mark, or were these in line with what you expected?
They're a little aligned with what I expected, because I think that, especially the reconnecting with people, I think that is something that we are really eager to do outside of our homes. We've been stuck in our homes, but you know, the what did surprise me is that, you know, the levers that restaurants can actively pull, I would have expected to be a little bit higher, because this isn't a select one question. This is, of all the things, tell us everything that gives you to dine out.
Yeah, I feel like there is a phenomenon.
I would have thought that more than 1 in 4 people would have said, you know, deals and promotions.
Yeah, so that's actually the interesting thing, right? It's not so much a particular thing the restaurant can do very directly. It's the notion of there being a special occasion that's worthy enough of getting me out of the house. And I think there is sort of a breaking the seal phenomenon where, you know, after you do it the very first time, it makes it a lot easier to do it the second, third, fourth, and fifth time. And we are entering the holiday season right now. And, you know, probably not a lot of people go out to eat on Christmas, except for Chinese restaurants or something. But there should be opportunities for various special occasions that we can get people into restaurants for, even if it's a personal special occasion, like something like a birthday. Maybe we should orient toward that a little bit to try to get that last stubborn group of consumers back into restaurants.
It's a really good point, Jack. I mean, I think that's a marketing challenge for a lot of restaurant operators, right? You know, because you don't want to necessarily kind of wait for all your traffic to come back for Mother's Day or Valentine's Day, but we need to sort of convince people that, you know, the kind of the small wins, or, you know, just the things that still kind of make us feel alive right now are worth celebrating, worth coming out for.
Very true. And I'd like to remind us of just one thing. If we could, Carly, go to the next image. When we ask people, what's the number one thing that restaurants have an advantage over eating food at home, right? If we don't get people out, we should remember it's about the food, more so than the service or the hospitality, more so than the setting or the ambiance. It's ultimately about having interesting foods that you couldn't easily make at home. And you've heard us say it a zillion times over, but these do tend to skew toward foods that have some sort of a global influence. So we think innovation is the way to get fully out of the pandemic, and it's worked pretty well so far. I would just keep that gas pedal pressed. Or sorry, we don't do gas anymore. I would keep that electric pedal pressed and continue to try to innovate with global influences wherever we can.
Hey, Jack, but what do you think about one thing, Jack, where I feel like this slide is a little bit in conflict with the previous one, right? Where, you know, in the previous slide, when we asked what could motivate you to kind of come back out and increase your frequency a little bit more, so, you know, the menu was a little bit more muted than some of the other reasons.
Yes, so you have to look at the nuance of things, right? So if you're freaked out about COVID, if you're one of those people and you've been eating out less, what would get you out? It's, oh, if something happened like a special occasion that, you know, called for me to be there. But overall with consumers, this is everybody. What do you think that a restaurant's main advantage is? It really is the food, and we should not forget that. And I think actually, if you look at the numbers around like menus and growth and whatnot, it's actually been pretty healthy, right? This is not 2009 where we saw innovation just turn off. Innovation has continued through the pandemic, and I think that's a very, very good sign. Okay, so I thought this was a pretty good segue into the topic of the day, which is holiday foods. And again, we don't have a webinar in 2 weeks, but we are going to talk about holiday foods for the rest of the holiday season today. So why don't we just jump into it, Carly, if you would. Thanksgiving plans. People are saying 1/3 that they say that they're going to spend more this year on Thanksgiving than they did in 2020, and only 18% saying they plan on spending less. So you should see a little bit of an uptick in relative spend versus last year, which makes sense because whether or not you'd even have Thanksgiving was in question last year, if you remember.
Right.
Carly, if we could. And how do you expect to celebrate Thanksgiving this year? Mark, if you had to do the 10-second top line, what do you see?
Probably more in small groups with immediate family or close friends, and not traveling too far. I think a lot of people tend to save a lot of their travel by, air and longer distances for the December holidays.
Yeah. So we did want to maybe take a look at that. Could we go forward one? I would just personally say if you don't have a AAA membership, you should totally get one. It's bailed me out many, many times. And AAA also, and we're not getting paid to say this, I just like AAA. And AAA also happens to publish travel forecasts as well, which tend to be pretty on the money. So if we can go one more slide forward. So this is what their Thanksgiving travel forecast looks like. You can see this year, and you can see what actually happened last year and what originally was going to happen in 2019. And it looks like we're getting back to 2019 travel numbers for Thanksgiving. Whoop, can you go back one, Carly? Sorry about that. You can see that the driving numbers, the air numbers, they're just, they're not too far off from where they were a couple of years ago. So travel has started to return. And if you've been in an airport recently, if we can go forward a slide, this was taken at Midway, I think, I don't know how many months ago, but it's getting pretty crowded. I was just, at the airport a couple days ago. It was shockingly crowded, and there were 45-minute lines for the fast food places, just like super, super long lines to get anything. I'm assuming some of that is labor shortage as well that's contributing to it. But it seems like airports are picking up, and boy, are the insides of those planes cram packed right now, right? There is no empty middle seat anymore. And I'm guessing they trimmed a bunch of flights and didn't add those back, but we have almost as many people flying these days. So travel does seem like it's starting to come back. Mark, we have just a minute. Tell us, what do you see in Thanksgiving gatherings?
Yeah, so I think the chart on the right there for gatherings away from home, this is where people might be using food service locations. I think kind of the real service and catering opportunity for food service operators is going to be kind of in still the small to moderate party size. You think about maybe one family plus grandparents, kind of a party of that size. I think that we are not really going to be back to a lot of the private room business quite yet, or the super big catering order quite yet. I think that there's going to be plenty of opportunity though for restaurants and others to supplement plans for Thanksgiving, or certainly for kind of Friendsgiving, the Wednesday night before get-togethers. But we're just not going to be back to raring to go, full steam ahead large parties yet.
And what we'll do is we'll release, you can download a copy of this presentation from our website. We'll post that in the next day or so. But I'm going to actually have us jump ahead a little bit. Jessica, there is a trick in PowerPoint not a lot of people know. If you type in the slide number you want to go to and hit enter, it'll jump you right there. So if you hit 35, enter, we're going to jump forward to the next section, which is really fascinating. Well, or you could just manually go through them too. That works as well. Okay, so here we are. We're going to bring in Mike and Renee, who always blow my mind with the stuff that they find. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the weird, specifically as it relates to holiday food. So do you guys want to start by telling us about what you saw in this image here that you gave me?
Did we send you that image?
No, you didn't give it to me. I found it myself.
Okay, yeah.
I was like, that seems like a Jack one.
Yeah, okay, so let's keep going. Let's jump right on in. Let's go.
Yeah, well, so I'm going to cover some of the general kind of tech stuff and weirder, more out there stuff. And then Renee's going to cover some of the more holiday focused stuff. So I feel like if you're looking at food trends and really interesting food trends around the world, like you can't not pay attention to Japan and Japanese culture. And like for fall and winter, they do all kinds of really kooky stuff, especially the American chains over there. And Burger King Japan has been killing it with some of the stuff they've been putting on the menu. And so these are, the name of this item on the menu is called the Sweet Fries of Clowns. And so they released this on the menu in October, and it's a chocolate and mango sauce fry topper that you could get as part of their Guilty Butter Burger release. So they actually infused butter into the buns, and then they did this Sweet Fries of Clowns on the side that you could get. So just kind of an interesting menu item. And then this, so Cup Noodle was celebrating their 50th anniversary. So also in Japan, they released these Cup Noodle flavored sodas. And so there are 4 different varieties. The reviews are kind of mixed on them. It seems like the original version is pretty good. It kind of tastes like ginger ale. By far, it seems like the least popular version is the seafood one, which the packaging itself describes as a cream soda with hints of seafood. But then there was a reviewer who said it just tasted like expired clam chowder, but like with the fizziness to it.
Were they the ones that did the pumpkin spice ramen?
Yeah, they did the pumpkin spice flavor in the US too, yeah.
I wondered if we accidentally snuck in a fake trend in here when I saw this at first. I was like, I didn't think we were doing that, Mike.
But the beverages in Japan also in general. So I know when Jack, you asked earlier, people had seen anything really crazy or surprising. A lot of people brought this one up, which is the Arby's vodkas. They actually did this with Tattersall Distilling in Minneapolis, which does a great job in general. But they released 2 different fry vodkas. So it's a potato-based vodka, so it actually makes sense kind of why they did this. And then the one has their typical curly fry flavors. So it has the paprika and the garlic. And then the other one is their new crinkle fries. So it's pretty much just like salt and sugar in there.
That sounds perfectly reasonable, actually.
Yeah, it's not that crazy.
That sounds.
Didn't this already sell out? I feel like they already
I
sold
like
out.
all these things. It feels like they sell out in like 30 minutes.
I love this idea. I love martinis and I love fries, and this just seems so efficient to be able to have both at the same time. Yes, please.
And the use right there in like the Bloody Mary. I mean, that makes a ton of sense. I feel like. I don't know why I choose things. So this next one like this, which are like extremely difficult to explain. But so this is, you might have seen this, but this is called DAO. So it's Dinner DAO, which stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organization. So it's a dinner party based on NFTs. So they sell an NFT, and then all of the funding that they get for that NFT, they put into a pool, and then they use that funding to go out to dinner once a month in that city. So it launched in New York. It's already sold out in New York. They're doing one in Portland, and they're trying to bring it to cities across the country. So it's an NFT-based dinner party.
So it's like, pay for my dinner, I'll give you a worthless piece of digital art. Is that?
Yes, exactly.
They basically just invented fraternity dues.
Do these people know each other?
No,
They
so
look
they're
very
all-
happy.
So the person that organizes it, who's the leader in that city, gets to invite one friend, but then everybody else is strangers.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, sure, whatever. And then, so also kind of tech focused, this was on Indiegogo. So this is called Bloom, which is a countertop home appliance that's designed to let you grow spirulina on your countertop. So they were hoping to raise $20,000 and they raised $137,000. And so they send you these little pods, you grow spirulina on your countertop, it's ready in 5 days, and then you can put it in a smoothie or a soup or a sauce.
Yeah, and we see spirulina as a trend, right?
Mhm.
So do you want to maybe take just 10 seconds and explain what spirulina is, Mike?
Yeah, so I mean, it's just an algae that grows in the ocean, and we can take it out, and then it has an incredible, it's a superfood. It's an incredible amount of.
And isn't it said to have like the highest concentration, I'm probably going to mispronounce this, of carotenoids, which is like the stuff that's in kale as well. It's supposed to be like a super version of kale. in
It's
that
something
regard.
like that, yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah. And then this one was also in the news because it comes from Blue Origin, which is Jeff Bezos's, space company. So they announced that they want to create this space station called Orbital Reef. that will be in low Earth orbit. And it's actually what they described as a mixed use business park in space. So companies can actually take their own spaceships and dock at this station, and they can stay there for a month or two. They can do, research products. They can grow things in space, and it's anybody can kind of go in there. And then maybe in the future, they said there'll be space tourism on this. So, and it sounds really far-fetched, but this is actually the direction that NASA wants to go in. So they actually want to get out of low Earth orbit, and the International Space Station, they're going to decommission in the next few years. And they want private companies to be in low Earth orbit, and they'll go into deep space. So.
And sorry, what's the food connection here again?
So actually, because any company can dock a space, craft at the station, you can use it for anything. So you can grow foods in space theoretically in the future. And then obviously like the hospitality and tourism portion of it, maybe in the future, we're going to have, a hospitality, focus in space itself.
Yeah, cool. I'll do it.
Yeah.
That dude needs to pay taxes.
And then this one, so this is really out there. So this is, it's a biosciences company called Colossal, and they just raised a bunch of money to bring back the woolly mammoth. And so in the short term, what they want to do is they actually want to infuse woolly mammoth DNA with Asian elephant DNA. And so it would look like a woolly mammoth, it would act like a woolly mammoth, but it would actually be based on current Asian elephants. But then in the future, there's the possibility that we would actually bring back extinct species. So it's not just about, I think one of the questions that came up is, would we be eating extinct species in the future, but also just what it means for sustainability. And, the idea here is that they want to have these, extinct mammals who were around in the past to bring them back and actually kind of bring back some of the ecosystems that maybe have gone away because, some of these species have died off.
There was a movie, I think it was
this Jurassic Park. Sorry.
Yeah.
It does make me think of that.
Wasn't there a Matthew Broderick movie like from the 90s called The Freshman, where it was about like an underground club of rich people eating extinct animals or soon to be extinct animals?
Really?
That sounds kind of familiar.
Someone should look that up.
Yes,
yeah,
it says so. People in the comments said they know what you're talking about.
Yeah. People of a certain age know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
I think the first thing everybody thinks is dinosaurs. Are we going to eat T-Rexes in the future?
Well, that was the thing, right? When with cell-based agriculture, the thought was that we could bring back extinct species and turn them into food. And that might be ethical because you're not actually killing something.
Killing
in that
anything,
case,
yeah.
But who knows? Let's keep going.
If you bring it back just to eat it, though, is that ethical?
And then this one, I'm sure everybody saw this. This is the Climate Pledge Arena that opened for the first time in Seattle last month. So it's Amazon bought the naming rights, so they actually named it after their own climate pledge. But it is a really interesting arena. So they are claiming that it is going to be the first zero, they're not going to use any fossil fuels in the future. It actually meant that they couldn't buy like traditional pizza ovens or, the types of things that you would normally have in the concessions. So they had to find all electric pizza ovens and things like that. 3/4 of the food at this arena comes from within 300 miles. 97% of the waste is diverted from landfills. So I think there's going to be a lot of learnings from this arena in the future.
What city is this in?
In Seattle.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool. It seems like a very Seattle thing to do.
Yeah, definitely. If you watch like the opening game, actually they were eating out of and drinking out of reusable metal containers because they don't use any disposable plastics.
Yeah, cool.
And then the last couple here, this is the weirdest one. This is the one I think is the most interesting. So this is Columbia University, and they came up with not only a 3D meat printer, but it also cooks the foods. So they can print chicken in this, but then they use lasers to cook the chicken as well. And so the idea behind it is that you could, get really, really, molecular when it was coming to creating the chicken, but then you just cooked it on like a flat top. So they wanted to, have that same level of control. So they use different types of lasers to cook the chicken. You can actually cook the chicken through a package, so you don't even have to open up chicken. And you can even get so granular that you can cook the chicken inside the chicken itself in different patterns. So you could have like a checkered board pattern in the chicken where like some parts of it are raw and some parts of it are cooked. Just really interesting, I think.
That's fascinating. I remember a few years ago, we were talking about this contraption called the Foodini, which was supposed to be that food 3D printer, which I think never made it to market, or maybe it did and just didn't do very well. Is this really a thing, or is this like there's one of these in the world and that's
one of these in the world right now? Yeah, there's one of these in the world. It's conceptual. Yeah.
Wow, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And then this one was in the news, but the University of Maryland came up with this wooden knife that is 23 times harder than wood itself and 3 times sharper than stainless steel. So it's more sustainable, it's naturally durable, it's a lower cost, and it's actually better than the metal knives that we have out there.
Wait, so this cuts like a knife?
Better than a knife.
You bring this on a plane?
I know, I wondered
it's more
that too,
dangerous
if it
than
could be safer. Yeah, I know, yeah. But they actually did nails too. So the nails were 3 times harder than stainless steel nails, and they don't rust at all either.
I think we created a new weapon. Okay.
That steak
and then the
looks
very
delicious.
last one takes us into the next section, which is GE just kind of sent out this turkey mode out to all of their GE appliances, their GE ovens that are Wi-Fi enabled. But it's a button that you can press. It cooks your turkey. It takes into account how large it is. It also like has that background that's kind of holiday related. It says gobble gobble when your turkey's done. But it just goes to show you, you know, how these smart appliances are actually functioning in consumers' homes right now.
And people like it when fun stuff like that happens, right? I mean, people like the idea of turkey mode, and some people that don't know the difference between bake or broil or convection, they'll get turkey mode as well. I think we should see a lot more of this stuff.
I think the Butterball hotline is going to be in your oven in the future.
Yeah, there you go.
And then that transitions us over to Renee, who will talk about some more holiday stuff.
Yeah, so from just a little continuation from last webinar when we talked about all the candy corn, I just saw this, and this was from Polly G's in Chicago. They had a basically a leftover Halloween candy pizza there on the right with candy corn, sriracha, and peanuts. I guess one of their former employees just decided to concoct that. And then kind of another use of corn that's more traditional, certainly on the left, that was a pizza that they had created to give back to muscular dystrophy, actually. But that has corn as well, and some shishito peppers or jalapenos there.
Are we saying this is a good idea, or are we just saying this is weird?
Just saying it's out there, it's weird.
Okay.
And then if you go to the next one, I'll go through these pretty quickly here. Someone had posted this on our Datassential Slack, and I thought this could not have been real, but it is apparently a turkey dinner, apple pie, coffee, candy corn. So this is a thing that exists, and there's a hilarious review of it on Twitter if you look that up.
So different than like jelly beans, right? Or gummy bears, but that have different flavors. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And then I think we have another, another Thanksgiving. This was a Friendsgiving line of ice cream flavors from Salt and Straw. So they're based in Portland, and they're known for their kooky flavors. So this one, they've got some caramelized turkey flavor. They've got a pumpkin flavor in there. So just kind of, I love that photo too. Just kind of very fun take on some Thanksgiving flavors there.
Incredibly unrealistic, right? That stuff would melt in 3 minutes.
And then on to the next one too, we've got, this is from Purdue. So last year they did Thanks Nuggets. I thought that was super clever, shaped like little turkeys, made from turkey meat instead of chicken, and then also had sweet potato seasoning on it. So this year they brought these Thanks dipping sauces. So the spiced apple honey mustard, that's based on stuffing, and then the cran barbecue sauce, obviously bringing in those flavors of cranberry sauce to combine. So I thought that was super interesting. And then the next one here, I was saying that Mike was probably gonna enter this contest here for Hershey's. So they came up with these new baking chips that are stockings and trees. And to promote it, they said, you know, this past year, everyone's been baking a lot more. So they collaborated with Hallmark. And so they are doing a Hallmark movie contest where the winner of a recipe that you submit with those little trees and stockings can walk onto a Hallmark movie. So it's either that or 5K, which seems like, I don't know, I kind of would rather have the movie, but then I guess you're forever in a Hallmark movie. So we'll see. And then if you go on to the next one here, so on the right there is actually from last year. We had the Cheddar Bay biscuit sweater that had a little pocket there to keep your biscuits warm. And we're starting to see these holiday sweaters coming back now already for this season. This year, Swiss Miss has their ugly holiday sweater with a pocket for your thermos. So I thought that's actually really cute with the matching blue there as well.
That's actually pretty good. How do you, so are they lined on the inside? How do you not get crumbs and oil and grease and stuff all over your clothes?
I think they're insulated and it looks pretty separate for the Cheddar Bay there, the biscuit. And then, yeah, you can kind of see the foil on that pocket for the Swiss Miss there. And just like we're seeing holiday sweaters coming out, the next one here is we've seen those, the Arby's meats wrapping paper from a few years ago. And now we have bacon infused wrapping paper. And then also we had Coolio there who did a little like wrapping Schoolio.
What has Coolio been up
that he's
to?
gonna
I don't know, but it looks great.
Yeah, I guess he's
good.
doing stuff like this. Teaching people how to wrap their roasts. And then I think we just have one more slide here in my section. And this is for one of those kind of made up holidays. This was for National Sandwich Day that Jet Puffed Marshmallows did this smogie. So a s'more hoagie, and it's actually the bun is infused with graham crackers, and then you've got a chocolate sauce on there and a sea salt spread and crispy prosciutto and a brown sugar glaze, and of course the marshmallows there. So kind of that nice little mashup for that holiday.
Are you saying National Sandwich Day is not a real holiday?
I mean those made up, like, okay, sorry, not made up, but the food holidays.
And every day is today's some day, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe
I'm
someone
sure
can
it
figure out
is.
what day today is. It's some weird day today. Every day is some weird day. Okay.
It's
Veterans
Veterans Day, so.
Oh yeah, today's it really is a day.
But
Okay.
yeah, there's probably another food holiday today as
Yes.
well.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And Carly's gonna take it home for us, talking about what we're seeing with plant-based holiday foods. Carly, what on earth do you feed a plant-based person?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's something that I get asked every year. And earlier, Jack, you were asking, what a vegan person looks like. I actually typed a vegan person into stock photos and found this. So here you go.
There you go.
Lettuce on the face and in the pocket. So, this question people ask me every year, and, getting it more and more because plant-based has grown so much on menus. In the past 4 years, it's grown by over 2,000%. Which is astronomical. And, we've seen that rise. It, I think, jumped a couple max stages within those years too, just because it's becoming so common and so easy to get. And so I wanted to highlight a couple cool Thanksgiving meals that are either vegetarian, vegan, or plant-based that we're seeing out in the world, and some retail products too that can serve as the centerpiece instead of a turkey. So this first one is from Watercourse Foods in Denver, and this is their seitan roast that you can see in the picture. So you can see it looks like turkey-like almost. And then
Seitan, you said?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, seitan right here. And then we can see here it's turkey-style roast, wheat, soy, and a blend of savory herbs. You can also get a pot pie too with like celery and mushrooms if you prefer that. And then the sides are pretty typical dinner rolls, root veggie stuffing. They have mac and cheese, Parmesan garlic mashed potatoes, herb gravy. You're going to see a lot of plant-based gravies, which you can't rely on the meat dripping. So they often use like miso or soy or mushrooms to replicate that savoriness.
Can I ask, where does the name seitan come from? Is that like it's not an acronym, right? Is it like a mashup of two different words? And is it a mistake to call it something that sounds so close to Satan?
You know, that's a great question. I don't know the origin of that name.
But the name deviled eggs are popular, right? So maybe it's okay.
Mhm.
I don't know.
I thought seitan wasn't a brand name. I thought it was just something
It's a
that
thing. It's a thing,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah,
And
it's a name.
tempeh,
Yeah,
right?
like tempeh.
Yeah.
Mhm. This is from Pingala Cafe in Burlington, Vermont. So this is their Thanksgiving menu. And for the centerpiece here, you can see they've gone a different route. It's a garlic herb crusted tofu. And you can see here a lot of the sides are very, very veggie centric. So winter squash soup, smoked beet and kale salad. We've got the mushroom pan gravy here. And then from Cafe Gratitude to more focus on
Wait,
those.
Carly, can you go back? I just want to point out one thing. This is one of the things that annoys me in life. Shouldn't the full order cost the same or less than 2 half orders? I hate it when places do that. You could just order 2 half orders and save $1. I feel like, I don't know, maybe I think maybe there's an assumption that people aren't good at math or something. I don't know. Anyways, that bugs the hell out of me.
Well, let's go to Cafe Gratitude, which has a couple locations in California. And I just want to focus on 2 of their sides. These are miso Brussels sprouts and then this lovely fall salad. So again, if you're eating plant-based and you want to think about the sides too, you know, fall has a lot of beautiful veggies and things that you can really focus on. And you can see here in the spirit of plant-based, it has a little bit of cheese on it too. We're also seeing, actually, there's been one Thanksgiving LTO that's completely plant-based, and this is from Big Grill. So they've got their warm, unreal deli turkey. There's a house-made walnut and mushroom stuffing, mushroom gravy again, and cranberry sauce on a toasted brioche bun. So this is a completely plant-based version of that classic kind of Thanksgiving sandwich with all the leftovers.
Awesome.
They also have a holiday feast that you can get. So here, Jack, this is priced a little bit more competitively for you, only for $75. 100% plant-based, 100% free prepped. And again, we're seeing those veggie centric sides. Here they have a turkey Wellington with walnut mushroom stuffing that you can see. And again, that mushroom gravy. And one thing that was really interesting to me is how they were marketing this. So I'm going to go to the next slide. We just one-upped turkey, bold claim to make. And I noticed plant-based and better, and then it's comfort food you'll feel comfortable eating and skip the food coma. I don't know how true that is. I can attest, you can definitely have a food coma from plant-based foods, but just kind of, you know, as a contrast to that different Thanksgiving, if you're going to eat plant-based, what are the benefits that it can provide you?
The tryptophan is not just in turkey, right? It's in other animal proteins too. Is it in plant-based material as well, or is it strictly an animal thing?
I think it's strictly an animal thing. And actually research has shown that tryptophan you have to, like, I think the amount of tryptophan that you'd have to eat to actually feel the benefits, it's like 5 turkeys or something crazy. It's mostly because we just eat and drink a ton and we're tired after.
That's hysterical. Okay.
it's like having to drink 2 bottles of wine yourself to get enough resveratrol to like really make a difference.
It's easier to drink 2 bottles of wine than eat 2 entire turkeys, isn't it? Like that, you can't even compare those things.
Challenge accepted.
Okay, Mark, in 4 weeks, let us know how that went.
If I'm alive.
You'll still be sleeping.
So this is the menu. Whole Foods this year is doing a collaboration with Chef Chloe Coscarelli. You may have heard of her former by Chloe line of vegan restaurants. So again, this is all vegan, no animal products, period. And you can pick these up from Whole Foods. So her main here is a cremini mushroom roast. She's got a coconut sweet potato casserole. Again, that mushroom gravy, miso creamed greens. So again, you know, lots of focus on the veggies and like that meaty mushroom at the centerpiece here. And then we're going to go into some retail centerpieces that you can purchase. So this is Corn's meatless roast made from their mycoprotein. So you can see it kind of slices and almost like looks turkey-esque.
Yeah.
Oh, was there a question?
No, I agree. It looks really good.
And then Field Roast has a celebration plant-based roast too, and you can see it has a porcini mushroom gravy included here. So again, this looks pretty meaty to me. I know I'm not the expert there, but it looks like something you would expect to see at a typical holiday dinner.
Yeah, that looks very realistic. I mean, I don't think you'd be able to tell it all just from at least that picture.
Mm-mm.
Wow.
And then Gardein has two options for you. So they've got a plant-based turkey roast with brown and wild rice, cranberries and kale. And then they have a savory stuffed turkey too with cranberries and sage and a home style gravy. And then finally, you can't talk about turkey replacers without talking about the original Tofurkey, which has quite a number of options. So they've got a couple different plant-based roasts. They also have a plant-based holiday feast. This is kind of like, I think, a TV dinner. And that brownie pictured there is actually a vegan brownie, which I thought was kind of cool. So you can get dessert from Tofurkey too.
So I was in a fast casual restaurant the other day, and you get your choice of chicken or beef or Euro meat or tofu. And I asked for tofu, and they said there's a tofu shortage, so we don't carry it anymore. Is that actually true, or is that just that maybe that one restaurant? Does anyone know? Is there a tofu shortage right now?
I know at the beginning of the pandemic there was one. The plant-based stuff was actually pretty hard to find because once meat ran out first, and then people were grabbing tofu and other plant-based products. I don't know if there's a tofu shortage now, though.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah.
Because it's all derived from what, soybean?
Mhm.
I think that we still devote a lot of acreage to it. So probably just a shortage of people getting it from the farm to the plate.
And then finally, I want to highlight one more. This is an LTO, comes back every year, and I think it is a perfect acceptable vegetarian option. This is Baskin Robbins ice cream turkey. So Renee, you showed us the salt and straw ice cream. If you just want to have an ice cream centerpiece for your main, why not? Full of protein.
Yeah, that would go perfectly with this. Absolutely.
This is not real.
It is real.
Oh yeah. It's been for several years. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what
Jeff,
is
At least one.
you could argue that this was the first plant-based turkey LTO on the market.
Wait. What is it?
It's an ice cream turkey. So it's like an ice cream cake shaped like a turkey.
But that's not plant-based then, right? If it's ice cream?
It's vegetarian if you want to eat something that isn't turkey.
So is there cake inside, or is it just a giant ball of ice cream?
I think there's cake inside it too.
Okay,
I think
that would make
mostly ice cream.
No, this is like that very early pandemic meme where everything was cake.
Is this one of those things where it's meant strictly for Instagram and for people to talk about, or is this something that people actually really do buy?
I want to say that Baskin Robbins has been releasing this so long. I think it actually predates Instagram. I think people just want ice cream shaped like a turkey.
Awesome. I love it. Cool. I think that takes some skill to make. And I just wanted to, thank you, Carly. Thank you, Mike, Renee, Mark, and to everyone. We're a minute over, so please be on your way. We're not going to hold any longer, but do not come here in 2 weeks. No matter what email you get, I don't care if it comes from me personally or from Zoom, or if someone's trying to do a phishing expedition against you and trying to break into your file. Anything you see that says come to the Datassential webinar on November 25th, ignore it. Doesn't exist. We will not have a webinar that day. But if you go forward one more slide, we will have a webinar on Thursday, December 9th, and every 2 weeks following at noon Central Time, as we always do. So don't come in 2 weeks, but you better come in 4 weeks, and we will see you then. Thanks, everyone.